Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 6th of July, 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, a lot of positive price action over the last 24 to 48 hours, huh? It's good to see ETH, charging up again, especially against Bitcoin. That's been wild to see. But even cooler to see is that DeFi is making a comeback. It's definitely feeling like people suddenly woke up to the fact that DeFi is still here. It didn't go anywhere. It's still growing, and it's growing in a really big way. I mean, I've covered it extensively on the Refuel. I think the biggest theme that we're seeing right now is the institutionalization of DeFi, which I've covered before with Aave Pro and Compound Treasury, and there's a bunch of other products coming out as well. I'm assuming pretty much every DeFi protocol, or at least every major one, is looking at how to service these kind of institutions and big businesses and things like that. So I was thinking about it today, and I put out this tweet and I said, July, August, September feels like they're going to be some radical months for Ethereum, because we have EIP 1559 going live. As I mentioned yesterday, it's probably going to go live August 4th, if not then on August 11th. There's going to be DeFi Summer Round 2, which could I think is being fueled by this institutionalization, the fact that people finally realize that DeFi is still here to stay. During a bear market, DeFi, I mean, the tokens may go down, but the usage stays flat or goes up. I mean, a lot of the protocols actually kept getting, their volume stayed pretty good. Like, the decentralized exchanges were still doing billions of dollars worth of volume. The money markets were still doing loans. Like, everything was functioning just fine. And on top of that, we have an NFT renaissance going on. People say, NFTs are in a bear market. It was all just a fad. But no, I mean, NFTs are definitely not in a bear market. Maybe some parts of it are the things that, everyone, a lot of people said 99% of NFTs would go to zero, and that's still true, but there are a lot of projects out there that are making waves and building communities. The OGs like CryptoPunks is still doing very well, and I think just the bubbly nature that we saw has kind of subsided for now, and we're seeing more genuine kind of things happen in the NFT space. And of course, Axie Infinity is part of that as well, in kind of like the gaming arena, and they've seen some incredible growth lately. So there's that going on, and then of course, Layer 2 Summer is the final thing here, which I've spoken about so many times on the Refuel. I'm not going to rehash all the Layer 2 stuff going on, but I've noted many times that the next 2 to 3 months is going to be really, really big for Layer 2. So we could have some kind of Layer 2 summer going on. And what this means is that the stars are really aligning for ETH and Ethereum at the end of the day. These sorts of things hit on either problems with the Ethereum network and kind of work to fix it, such as Layer 2 coming along and fixing the scalability, or they are basically just showing that the Ethereum network is still getting adoption, still growing, and it is still kind of like chugging along, even though the prices might be down, and we're still not 50% off all-time highs, but still, 40-45% off all-time highs or whatever. At the end, as I said, the NFT space is still growing exponentially. The DeFi kind of ecosystem is chugging along. And, I was actually thinking about this today, and I was thinking about the term super cycle, and it became a bit of a meme within the crypto ecosystem, where people thought that super cycle meant that there wouldn't be any downtrends in crypto anymore, there wouldn't be any massive dumps, it would just be up only forever. And, fair enough, I get like that kind of line of thinking, but to me, it was never about that. The super cycle to me was always about the adoption cycle. I think we're at the point in crypto where we're just going to see adoption for the next 10 plus years of these technologies. It's going to come, in waves for sure. It's not going to be just like one straight up kind of curve. But within that, if we zoom out in a few years and we kind of like see how the adoption happened, it's going to look like it was just like a straight curve instead of bumps along the road. And this adoption is happening not just with NFTs and DeFi, but also with DAOs and things like social tokens, Web3. I mean, and it's not even just happening on Ethereum. Like, I'm not going to say that Ethereum's got a monopoly on everything happening in crypto, but obviously a lot of it is. But there are other things on other kind of networks happening as well. And I just think that's what super cycle always meant to me. Of course, prices are going to go up and down and do whatever, just from the fundamental reason that people want to take profits. I mean, if you're sitting on a 10 times on your investment on something like ETH, you're going to want to take some off the table. And if enough people want to take profits, then we see these kind of dumps, because there's never enough liquidity to cover people wanting to take profits. But it works the other way as well. If enough people want to FOMO in and buy back in and stack more ETH, then they'll do that. And I didn't even mention the fact that the merge is happening, obviously, within the next, hopefully, nine-ish months or something like that. And that's because I think that, it's too far away from where we are today to really talk about it just yet, but that's coming, and it's coming in a really big way. And ETH is still going into staking. I mean, we just crossed 6 million ETH staked. I'm expecting that to get to at least 10 million by the time the the merge rolls around, for sure. And then post the merge, I'm not sure how much of that will be unlocked and sold into the market. There will be some inevitably, but there are kind of like limits on that. As I've explained before, only 900 validators can exit, or around 900 validators can exit per day, which is 900 times 32 ETH, is how much ETH could theoretically be sold if they wanted to sell it into the market. But also with the merge, immediately after it, I mean, there's no like withdrawals yet. There's a separate kind of hard fork going to happen after the merge goes through to enable withdrawal. So that might take another month or two or something like that. I'm hoping it happens faster than that. But again, the merge would just be kind of like done, and then still people wouldn't be able to kind of move their funds around or sell their ETH from staking or whatever. But I don't know if people will actually want to do that. As I've mentioned before, people are looking at the 6.5% APR that we've currently got as like the be-all end-all of ETH staking, which it isn't, because when the merge happens, all the fees that aren't burned under 1559 and all the MEV capture is going to go to stakers. So that APR is actually going to go up a lot. It's probably going to go to 20% plus. Now, if you're getting 20% plus on your ETH, like how many people are going to want to unlock their ETH from staking and sell it? And totally it depends on what the price is as well. You know, if the ETH price is like 10K plus at that point, well, you can be sure a lot of people are going to be kind of unstaking, because people staked when ETH was like $300 or $500, something like that. So if ETH is at 10K, that's a 20x on their money. They're probably going to take some profits there. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. But generally, you know, I only mentioned like 4 things here, and there's so much more with Ethereum and coming to Ethereum, and so much more happening in that ecosystem. I mean, you know, just today, there was a crypto bank called Sygnum Bank that's now offering an Ethereum 2.0 staking service. This sort of stuff, it may seem small in the grand scheme of things. It may seem like something that's just all hype and no substance, but the more of these kind of companies that we see adopting these sorts of things, the more ETH is going to be staked, and logically that follows the more secure the Ethereum network is, and the higher the price of ETH will go, of course, as well, and the more financialized ETH will become as an asset, which is obviously good for the network because of the security of the network as well. So we're going to see more of this coming out, and this is a Swiss crypto bank for those who don't know, and there's already plenty of staking services, of course, and you could argue crypto banks like Coinbase and Binance or whatever are filling that role as well. But, you know, we're going to get to a point where we eventually see JP Morgans of the world and all these other kind of banks around the world, the centralized banks, of course, kind of do this sort of stuff. And I know we're trying to disrupt banks, but the hilarious thing is it's like a Trojan horse, where by supporting this sort of stuff, they're kind of like inviting in their own destruction at the end of the day, which I don't know if they realize it or not. It's probably just something that they add because they've got demand from clients or whatever. But still, it's going to be really exciting to see how that plays out. And finally, on this front, you know, the ETH kind of balance on all exchanges reached a 2.5-year low yesterday, I think. You can see on this chart here that this stretches back to, I guess, like mid-2020, when it was at 26 million ETH on exchanges. Now it's approaching 20 million. So 6 million ETH has come off exchanges. And I've gone over in the data pump videos before how a lot of that ETH has actually gone into smart contracts on Ethereum or gone into DeFi, of course. So it's become more productive there. And that's always been my bet, and a lot of people's bets on the crypto ecosystem, is that we bet on productive assets at the end of the day. And ETH is the most productive asset in crypto. So why not continue betting on it and continue kind of, doubling down on it, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to take power away from these centralized institutions, put that into DeFi, put that into crypto, and kind of like grow the pie there. So really, really awesome to see that playing out there. And, you know, I don't know if this is going to go up. I mean, if the price goes up, this normally goes up because people are cashing out. You can see at the end of kind of May there, or mid to end of May, it spiked, obviously because people were sending to exchanges to sell because of the big crash and things like that. And there are obviously considerations to be made here. I mean, Willy Woo made some points here where he said 2 key considerations is that this has gone into like DeFi and things like that, and staking, of course, as well. Now, that's something that I've discussed as well in the past, where I've said that I think this metric is maybe not the best for measuring, you know, if the ETH price is going to go up or not, because of the fact that it's very different to something like Bitcoin. When Bitcoin leaves an exchange and goes into, you know, onto the Bitcoin network, you can be relatively certain that that's going into cold storage, or it's not going to be sold anytime soon. soon. Whereas with Ethereum, if ETH is leaving an exchange, well, that doesn't mean that the ETH is not going to get sold. Maybe that ETH is leaving an exchange and it's going to get sold for some stable coins on a DEX or something like that. Or maybe it's going into a liquidity pool where it's active. Or maybe it's being used as collateral. You don't know what it's actually doing. But we can obviously measure. We can see in staking there's over 6 million ETH. In DeFi, I think there's almost 9 million ETH. And then we can kind of look on chain and see all these other addresses that are cold storage or not. And I've gone through this before. I wrote a newsletter about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter the other day. But I think when you're looking at these metrics, you do have to keep those considerations into account. And that's kind of like a major difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum here, is that when people, like as I said, when people go to Bitcoin, withdraw their BTC from an exchange, it's very different to when people withdraw ETH from an exchange there. So I wanted to quickly mention this ShibaSwap thing that the Shib project launched, because they launched with a externally owned account, basically being able to control the entire protocol. Now, that's what EOA stands for, and what an externally owned account is basically just a normal Ethereum address. So in Ethereum, you have two account types. You have a normal Ethereum address, like me and you have, like a normal public-private key pair, and then you have a smart contract address, which is not EOA. So when something is controlled by an EOA, it means it's just controlled by one person, and that one person can essentially rug, I guess, if they wanted to, in this kind of thing here. So this was fixed, but at the I think this was posted a few hours ago, this could happen. But then Bante kind of said it was fixed, and the devs reached out and transferred the owner role to a 6 of 9 multi-sig, and they also plan to implement a time lock. So it's not too bad now, but what I wanted to kind of bring up about this was the fact that when you look at this and look at these kind of new projects, you have to be really careful here. And this is why people lose a lot of money and why they get rugged, is the fact that they ape into a fresh project or a fresh new kind of set of smart contracts without knowing that this is going on, because why would you know this? Unless you can read the code and look at it yourself, then you're not going to know this. So they just do it because it's FOMO, it's whatever. And we saw a lot of this play out on, firstly in DeFi Summer on Ethereum, then we saw it play out with BSC, and I think there's a bit of it going on Polygon as well. And I think this is going to play out on layer 2s and keep playing out. I mean, it's very easy to scam people in this ecosystem. So I did want to just put that on your radar, that when you kind of like see these brand new contracts from projects such as Shib, right, or like projects that aren't considered the DeFi blue chips, it's a higher chance you're going to get rugged, or something bad's going to happen than in something like a DeFi blue chip. But still, generally, my rule with new smart contracts is that I try not to put like all my funds into it at once, or make a huge bet on it, because there could be a bug, even if it is one of those DeFi blue chip projects or whatever, even if it is the best project out there, even if it is like something like Maker that has been around and never been kind of never had any hacks or anything like that, it can still happen. So maybe don't get a false sense of security there. Definitely something to keep an eye on. But glad to see that they transferred it to a multi-sig at least, and there's going to be a time lock. Obviously, a multi-sig itself isn't enough, because the multi-sig could just be owned by owned by the same person, because that person could just be all 6 or all 9 signers. But a time lock is usually the best way to do it here, where basically for any changes to happen on a protocol, it would be delayed by, say, 24, 48 hours, whatever you want to have the time lock put in place. So whoever's monitoring it can say, oh, well, there's this change going through, and if the change is to basically steal everyone's money, well, before that goes through, you can just take your money out of the protocol, and that'd be fine. But still, that's really bad for people who aren't monitoring, and if it's only a 24-hour time lock, then it's definitely not enough time for people to kind of react to it. So still good to see them doing this rather than keeping it as a normal EOA here. So Tim Kang, who's helping out the universe XYZ project here, put out a tweet that said, I dislike talking about my finances, but as a founder of Universe XYZ, I must share I've been invested 5% of my XYZ tokens, and I take a $0 salary, and I'm now committing 20% of my 5%, which is 1 million plus, to a personally vetted developers fund to build new tools for the decentralized NFT and music industry. Now, he talks a bit more in detail about this in this thread, which I'll link in the YouTube description, but what I wanted to focus on was just the fact that this kind of stuff is so cool. I love this stuff. I love it when project founders or DAOs or whales or whatever you want to call them come in and say, okay, well, I'm going to put up funds for open source software development. I'm going to help out in any way that I can. I mean, I push Gitcoin all the time. Whenever there's a grants round, I always push it to you guys and make sure that you donate. But I think it needs to go beyond that. I think every project should have a grants program. And I've spoken about a lot of this in the past, where like Aave, Uniswap, the Ethereum Foundation, like every big kind of DAO or project or foundation needs to have these kind of things to fund the development in this ecosystem because of the fact that a lot of it is open source, a lot of it doesn't have their own token, and a lot of this work is generally done, on a I guess like a cheap basis where the developers aren't paid very much, or on a free basis where they just develop these kind of tools that are used by a lot of people, and then eventually they might issue a token because they're like, well, I want to keep developing this, but I can't do it because I'm not getting any funding for it, so I need to issue a token. So in saying that, we obviously don't want everything to have a token. There are some things that obviously don't need a token ever, but there are some things that are very critical. Developer tools, for example, within Ethereum, I don't think they need a token, but that's very critical. We need people to keep working on better developer tools. We need people to keep working on better languages, like improving Solidity as a language and Viper and all that sort of stuff. That stuff's not going to have a token, and if it does, the token's probably not going to go anywhere, and it would water down the work, I believe. So we need to keep funding things like that. We need to make sure that these people stay, I guess, like in this ecosystem and keep developing this critical stuff, because without them, we wouldn't have all of the luxuries that we have, and the people who issue tokens probably wouldn't even be able to issue the tokens without this sort of stuff. So I'm really glad to see Tim Kang doing this. It's just, I guess, generally falls into the theme of this is what we try to embrace within the Ethereum ecosystem, is this openness of sharing the money around, sharing the profits around, reinvesting in the ecosystem, not for profit, but, as a not for profit kind of endeavor here. But the profit you get is basically that you hold some of the crypto tokens or whatever they are, whatever crypto it is. Essentially, it could be ETH, it could be some DeFi token, it could be an NFT. And the logic is that by helping out and doing this stuff for free, you're paid dividends in another way. That's kind of like how I play it as well. I mean, a major reason why all the Daily Gwei stuff is free is because I basically subsidize the costs from my investments, essentially, over the years. And I've said before, Daily Gwei is my way of giving back. And, I'm self-sufficient because of my investment in ETH over the years. But without that, I wouldn't be able to do this for free. I'd have to charge for it if I wanted to do this kind of like as I'm doing it now. So that goes for not just me, but a lot of other people that are doing all this stuff for free. We got to eat at the end of the day, right? So I think that this is really awesome to see this, and I'm hoping more individuals do this, because I've seen a lot of DAOs do it, but not too many individuals. There are some in the Bitcoin grants arena and things like that, but this is a huge chunk. And I'm not sure if it's this 20% of the 1 million or 20% of his 5% equals 1 million. I'm not sure about that. I assume it's about $1 million, which is really awesome. That's going to fund a lot of different things here. So I'm really glad to see that, and I'm excited to see where this money goes. So speaking of DAOs and everything that falls into that, Austin Griffith detailed today on Twitter that he says, we created the BuildGuild to stream ETH to open source developers and artists creating Ethereum. It has grown, and I think I need to make an LLC, but I'm from Wyoming, and they just passed a new DAO law. Should BuildGuild be a Wyoming DAO? Who should I talk to? Now, this goes back to what I was just saying about how there's a lot of people in this ecosystem funding open source developers, and now obviously with this BuildGuild, it's gotten too big to just be an unofficial thing. It has to be something more official, whether that be an LLC in the US or a DAO. Now, I don't know if going and registering as an official DAO in Wyoming is the best kind of, course of action here. I heard about Wyoming making DAOs kind of like, recognizing them as legal companies or whatever, but I think that it basically isn't very much different to an LLC. I haven't looked too deep into it, but I don't think it's that much different. So my kind of vote would just be to create just a DAO in general. Like, make a DAO that's not registered to any kind of government or regulating body or whatever, and make it so that it's just regulated by the Ethereum network. And maybe you can issue tokens, or maybe you can issue voting rights to people that have interacted with your app or interacted with other apps. Like, say you issue voting rights to this DAO, the BuildGuild DAO, to people who were involved with Gitcoin, for example, and the Gitcoin stewards and stuff like that. I think that would be really cool. So, but this is just continuing the trend of more and more kind of like of these things. Instead of creating LLCs or LLC is a limited liability corporation in the US. It's the best way to incorporate in the US, from my understanding, when you're just getting started. But, I think that a DAO is even better than that. I think that a DAO gets basically stateless, and Ethereum becomes its digital nation, is even better than registering in any kind of like meat space regulatory body. So maybe, I don't know if Austin Griffith watches these things, but and I didn't reply to him saying that he should just do a DAO, a vanilla DAO on Ethereum, but I think he should. And I think that anyone pursuing this sort of stuff should do a DAO on Ethereum. I mean, I don't plan to do a Daily Gwei DAO, but if I did, it would be on Ethereum. I wouldn't register a Daily Gwei company with, the local kind of, business registration office in Australia or anything like that. The ASIC, not ASIC. There's I can't remember what the body's called right now. But essentially, I wouldn't do that. I would create a DAO, just like what Bankless did. Like Bankless didn't incorporate in a nation state. They didn't incorporate, but they made a DAO, the Bankless DAO, obviously, and they issued bank tokens and things like that. So I think that's the better path forward. I feel like it goes against the ethos and the spirit of this community and of this ecosystem to just incorporate into like the meat space area instead of, I guess, keeping it within Ethereum, because you basically lose the magic, right? Like, I feel like if you did a DAO and it was like, okay, well, we're registered in Wyoming as a DAO, this, and this applies to us, we have to abide by these, and these rules, it would actually turn off a lot of people. I feel like that would definitely turn off a lot of people. It would turn off me. I just want a natural DAO on Ethereum. I don't want any of the regulatory baggage. I don't want to have to worry about if I'm doing something wrong or if, regulators can come after me for doing something with this DAO. All I want is for something to be totally regulated by code on the Ethereum network, having no connection to the outside world in terms of being able to be policed or regulated, and that's what I would feel more comfortable with at the end of the day. And I think we're going to see more and more of this happening, like these experiments happening. Some of them will go the Wyoming DAO route. Some of them will go the fully on-chain Ethereum DAO, which we've seen a lot of projects actually do that lately, especially within the DeFi arena. And some will be hybrids, and there'll be just so many experiments here. We haven't even scratched the surface of DAOs, I believe. I think DAOs are still very messy. It's still very rapid experimentation, but we're going to get to a point where some DAOs like start to function like well-oiled machines. And you know what? I think we're already at that point with some of them. I believe MakerDAO functions very nicely. Yes, it moves slowly, but it actually functions very well. I believe some of the other DeFi DAOs out there function very well too. Gitcoin's DAO, I think, even though it's newer, I think it's on the right path and things like that. So in saying that, we've been in the rapid experimentation phase, and now we're maturing in the DAO space, and it's going to get even more wild from here, I believe, and it's going to get even more mature, and it's going to be fun to see. Fun, maybe not the right word, but interesting to see what governments are going to do about DAOs going forward, because some of these DAOs are very big. They've got billions of dollars in their treasuries. They're technically kind of like having people on the payroll, so to speak. So will governments and nation states come after these sorts of things and try to regulate them, try to get them to pay tax, things like that? It's going to be wild to see what happens there, and I'm very interested to see how DAOs evolve in the coming months and years. So just a shout out here, Nethermind is running a survey for Ethereum developers that will take no more than 5 minutes to complete. So if you're a developer, Nethermind is looking for your feedback to better understand future requirements from developers in terms of improved dev tooling, documentation, and more. So you can check out this form. It'll be linked in the YouTube description for you to go and fill out. But one thing I did want to talk about here with regards to this is what I was saying before about how there's a lot of teams like Nethermind, like core protocol teams that aren't making any money from a token. Like the Nethermind team or Geth or like any of these protocol kind of like teams don't have native tokens attached to their protocol. Technically, the token would be ETH, right? But they're not getting ETH out of anywhere. Like they're not. I mean, a lot of the ETH2 developers aren't founding members of Ethereum. They didn't get like massive ETH bags at the start of Ethereum. They came in much later, but they still developed and they're still getting paid out via grants and monetizing in other ways. But a lot of them got their start from grants, and a lot of them got their start from Vitalik as well. I mean, for some of you who don't know, Vitalik actually donated 1,000 ETH back in 2019, I believe, to a bunch of different teams. And back then, that was only worth $100,000 or something like that. Or maybe a bit more than that, depending on what the price of ETH was. Because the price of ETH really was between $100 and $200 during 2019, at least most of it. But, I think a lot of those teams actually kept that ETH or kept a nice chunk of it. And now they're sitting on some nice treasury there from Vitalik. But it's not just that. They got grants from the Ethereum Foundation, from various ecosystem kind of things. Gitcoin grants, of course, as well. I remember donating to those teams early on and things like that. And these are the kinds of things that need to continue to be funded by these kind of things, because we don't want these clients issuing their own token. The incentives get pretty perverse there. if a client team was to issue its own token, I don't even know how that would work. It would get very messy, I believe, and it would definitely go against what we're trying to build into the Ethereum network and the resiliency we're trying to build here. So we still need to kind of fund those things through various means, and that's exactly what we're doing. So yeah, again, if you're a dev and you want to give feedback on how Nethermind can improve your experience through dev tooling, documentation, and things like that, definitely go fill out this form. And for those who don't know, Nethermind is an Ethereum client, an ETH1 client. They're one of the clients alongside Geth and Aragon, which was Turbo Geth, and a few others out there, of course. Open Ethereum has now been deprecated, but they've been working hard at it for quite a while. They're very involved within the Ethereum ecosystem. So your help for them would be very valuable. So yeah, definitely go check this out. But I think that's it for today's episode. So thank you again, everyone, for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.